Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, January 23rd. A milder weather pattern is setting up for much of the nation. It will become increasingly wet for the West Coast, and that includes California, of course, and they look like they'll get hit with multiple storms, not only in the near term, but really over the next couple of weeks. We'll be hearing that phrase, atmospheric river, I'm sure, over the next several days and maybe over the next couple of weeks. A very strong Pacific Ocean jet will indeed push a lot of moisture right into the U.S. West Coast. The Gulf of Mexico region, the lower Mississippi Valley, will also have a very wet time period in the near term over the next few days. A lot of that moisture will push up to the North Andes, into the Ohio Valley, into the Mid-Atlantic region, and into the Northeast U.S. I thought we'd start off with an update on El Nino. This, of course, will have an impact on the second half of the winter season, and certainly it looks like a strong La Nina may form later on this year, and that will have an impact on the upcoming tropical season as well. Here are the temperature anomalies, the sea surface temperature anomalies as we speak, and this is your El Nino region right here along the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. Notice just south of the equator, this is the equator line right here, cuts right across this El Nino region right here with these warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. Notice just south of there, there is an expanding area of colder than normal sea surface temperatures. Indeed, this is the beginning signs of the end of the El Nino. All indications are that El Nino will continue to weaken during the second half of the winter season, and indeed La Nina conditions will take over sometime during the spring, and they may strengthen enough to become a strong La Nina by later this year. In fact, going into potentially going into much of the tropical season, which of course officially begins in the Atlantic Basin around June 1st. So again, let me just clear the deck here. Very interesting what's going on here. This is really the beginning signs of a La Nina starting to form out across the Pacific Ocean. That'll gravitate to the north here over the next several weeks. By that I mean the colder than normal sea surface temperature conditions will push farther and farther to the north in coming weeks. Now here's another interesting way to look at this El Nino. What we're looking at here is the beneath the surface. The surface rides right across this region here in the Pacific Ocean. These are the sea surface temperature anomalies below the surface. Notice this colder than normal blob starting to rise up. This is right around this particular position on this kind of a loop of maps is the west coast of South America, and you go farther and farther out into the central part of the Pacific Ocean. You can see beneath the surface there's some colder than normal waters that are starting to kind of upwell, starting to rise to the surface. Again, this is all signals that the El Nino is about to come to an end. It certainly will weaken over the next several weeks, over the second half of the winter season. And it looks like a full-fledged La Nina will take over in the Pacific Ocean by the tropical season, sometime later in the spring or certainly by early summer. Again, we'll have not only a La Nina, but potentially later this year a strong La Nina. Well, one final chart on the El Nino update here I wanted to show. It's called the Multivariate ENSO Index, and basically it's a reflection of many parameters, many atmospheric parameters on the strength of El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. And I received a question that was a very good question. Why do I believe that this particular El Nino will be rather short-lived? It just developed during 2023, and it looks like it's going to completely fall apart by the time we get to the spring of 2024. Well, the reason I do believe this will be another short-lived El Nino is really since the 1990s, and here we have the timeline going across here, and these red areas represent the El Ninos. This is the current El Nino we're in, the 2016 El Nino right here, and then some weaker El Ninos going back to around this time period, the 1990s or so. Almost all, if not all, of these El Ninos have been rather short-lived. This one perhaps the strongest, certainly the strongest one, and only lasted a year or a year and a half, couple of years maybe. But almost all the El Ninos going back to the 1990s or so have been rather short-lived. That's why I have high confidence that this El Nino indeed will be another short-lived El Nino and will flip all the way to La Nina by the springtime, certainly by the summertime, and there's a chance that it will become a strong La Nina. These blue areas represent the La Ninas. They've been tended to be longer lasting during the last 20 years or so than the counterpart, the El Nino. So again, this is supporting evidence to me that indeed this El Nino very well is in its demise already, starting to fall apart here, and we will flip to a La Nina pattern later this spring. Okay, let's pull away from the El Nino update, which is very interesting indeed and will have an impact on the rest of the winter as well as the tropical season. But let's get to the near-term outlook here. This is actually a total precipitation rainfall amounts over the next 2 weeks. This is going way out there, 2 weeks from today, all the way out to February 6th from the 0Z run of the GFS. Just wanted to highlight two areas that will be in the news over the next couple of weeks in terms of weather. One, getting some significant rainfall down across the lower Mississippi Valley region into the Tennessee Valley, places like Louisiana that have been very dry in recent weeks will certainly make up for any kind of drought conditions that they've experienced over the past couple of months. Very moist, and this is in the near term over the next 5 or 6 days or so. Not only the near term, but the longer term as well. The first couple of weeks of February, the U.S. West Coast will get bombarded by multiple storms. This includes the entire state of California. By the way, this is in the Sierra Nevada region. Obviously, a lot of that will be in the form of snow, but we'll be hearing about atmospheric rivers over the next couple of weeks here with indeed a very strong jet stream across the Pacific Ocean that will set up and push all kinds of moisture into the U.S. West Coast. So really a stormy period setting up now and going forward for the first couple of weeks in February from California to Washington and even into British Columbia, a region of southwestern Canada. In the near term, a lot of rainfall across the lower Ohio Valley, and a lot of that will end up moving into the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. as well. Well, now let's walk through the 500 millibar height anomaly charts from the 0Z run of the GFS. This is with the North America view, and I mentioned in yesterday's video, if you like snow and cold in the eastern U.S., you do not want to see all kinds of blue up here across Canada and Greenland. The blue here represents lower heights than normal, and a ridge is popping up, indicated here by the orange, across the eastern Great Lakes and really extending all the way from south central Canada into the eastern part of the U.S. This intensifies, and it's associated with a milder pattern. Temperatures will really surge in the eastern U.S. By the time we get to Friday. Friday could end up being the warmest day of the week. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, maybe 65 degrees on Friday afternoon in D.C., 55 in New York City. Again, a milder pattern setting up, and as we saw a moment ago, a lot of moisture will flow out of the Gulf of Mexico region into the Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and ultimately into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S. Now, let's push forward here, and kind of an interesting change by the early part of next week. Notice, again, the positioning of this ridge along the eastern part of Canada, the eastern part of the U.S., a lot of blues here. This is 48 hours from now, Thursday morning. A lot of blues, lower heights than normal across Greenland and northern Canada. And we start moving into the latter part of the week and into the upcoming weekend. And notice quite an impressive upper level low here down across the south central states by the time we get to midday on Saturday. Also notice that there tends to be kind of a retrograding high pressure ridge from the southeastern part of Canada, more based in the central part of Canada. And by the time we get to Sunday, this becomes kind of the dominant ridge over Canada and the central part of Canada, and a very impressive upper level low. Now, there will be no cold air around initially in the Mid-Atlantic region in much of the northeast U.S. During the middle part of the weekend or the latter part of the weekend. But strong high pressure will build across southeastern Canada and act as a source of cold air, and you certainly can get some of that cold air feeding into this system with a possible changeover from rain to snow or ice in parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. late Sunday night. We'll take a look at the surface maps in a moment here, but let's move all the way out to Monday morning. And here we go. We'll have likely low pressure off the Mid-Atlantic coastline moving off the New England coastline at this particular time. And notice again the shifting of that upper level ridge over eastern Canada into central and western Canada. And again, that will allow for cold air to build up in southeastern Canada with an associated surface high pressure system, and that could feed in some cold air into the Mid-Atlantic, into the Northeast, especially interior sections, late Sunday night, early Monday time frame. Well, let's now walk through the surface forecast maps from the 0Z run of the GFS. This is as we begin the day here on Tuesday. First of all, strong high pressure, Hudson Bay region of Canada edging into southeastern Canada. That will kind of maintain a low-level cold air mass across the interior sections of the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. over the next 12 to 24 hours or so, resulting in some freezing rain indicated here by the pinks and some snow, accumulating snow indicated here by the blues. Places like upstate Pennsylvania, much of New York State should get some accumulating snow late tonight into early Wednesday, thanks in large part by this large high pressure system over southeastern Canada feeding in and maintaining some low level cold air. Let's move forward here. We have this band of snow, accumulating snow, upstate Pennsylvania near the New York State border and the southern part of New York State by later today. And that continues into early tonight here. Again, snow up across New York State, northeastern Pennsylvania. The pinks indicate areas of freezing rain or sleet. And I do believe there's a slight chance of a touch of freezing rain all the way down to the north and west suburbs of Philly and New York City, maybe the far northern and western suburbs of D.C. Watch out for a bit of freezing rain late tonight, very early in the day on Wednesday, and after that it becomes warm enough for just plain rain Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in the bulk of the Mid-Atlantic region. And notice this stream of moisture just coming north and east out of the Gulf of Mexico into the lower Mississippi Valley. Again, Louisiana's been quite dry recently. That will change over the next few days here, and some moisture already feeding into the west coast of the U.S. here by tomorrow morning. And here we go into the day on Wednesday. A lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico all the way across the Mid-Atlantic region. That lower level high pressure system over southeastern Canada exits off to the east. The low level cold air starts to erode that snow initially upstate PA, much of New York State, changes over to rain, maybe some freezing rain hanging on early tomorrow night, interior New England. Now, let's keep moving forward. Kind of a repeat performance with yet another low pressure area moving out of the Gulf of Mexico and producing some rainfall, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic region later Thursday. Friday, likely to turn out to be the warmest day of the week. Maybe even some sunshine Friday afternoon, place like D.C. where it could hit 65 degrees, maybe 60 in Philly, 55 in New York City, and the rain probably exits early in the day, allowing for the possibility of some brightening skies and again a surge, a spike in temperatures on Friday in that I-95 corridor region. Then we move ahead to the weekend, and notice another low pressure system pulls out of the southern states into the Ohio Valley. This is a Saturday evening forecast map. Virtually no cold air around at this particular time. We've talked about these thickness values here, the dash blue lines and the dash red lines right here, relatively warm, 552 thickness here, Saturday evening, right across the southern part of Pennsylvania. Again, at the onset of this system, virtually no cold air around. However, what happens is that strong high pressure, you can kind of see it edging in right here at this particular time. By Sunday morning, strong high pressure is edging into the southeastern part of Canada. Ultimately, it moves into this position, and it will kind of become a source of cold air. It could feed in some cold air down into the northeast, into the mid-Atlantic region late Sunday night. We'll move ahead here in time, but this is the progression of events late in the weekend. The strong high pressure starting to build in southeastern Canada. Let's now clear the deck and move forward here. As a result of that high building into southeastern Canada, the initial low, primary low, does indeed go up into the northern Ohio Valley, but a secondary is likely to form off the mid-Atlantic coastline. Again, some cold air will start to feed in. Initially, no cold air around, but with this high pressure developing over southeastern Canada, that will become a source of cold air. And you can have a changeover to snow, especially in some of those interior, higher elevation sections of the mid-Atlantic, of the northeast U.S. This is now Sunday night time frame. That initial primary low weakens, a secondary takes over off the mid-Atlantic and ultimately off of the northeast U.S. coastline. It'll go out a little farther in time. And again, colder air starting to feed in here. Notice that thickness here over Philly area dropped from 556 to 540 by this particular time, late Sunday night. Again, some snow starting to unfold here. Likely not a big snow event here, but because of the fact that there's no cold air initially, but with this strong high sitting up there on late Sunday, Sunday night, Monday morning, can be enough cold air to seep into that system, to wrap into that system for a change over to snow. Late Sunday, Sunday night time frame into early Monday. This is the Monday morning forecast map across those interior sections of the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. So a lot going on. We have a very interesting update to the El Nino, and it does appear that it's starting to fade away. And La Nina is very likely to take over by the spring, or certainly by the summer tropical season, and it will have a big impact, likely causing a very active hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin with strong La Nina developing by the summertime. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.